What's up, guys? This is James Anderson here, and I'm actually sitting here with Mr. Jon Pettiford-El, Platinum Executive Vice President. And we're just kind of sitting here talking, and we started getting into a bit of a conversation with a couple of things. And I had a couple questions for him, and I want you guys to hear these answers because he told me the same thing, and it just kind of blew me away. So, John, what's the first thing that you told me about why people need to understand the four obstacles that's keeping them from becoming financially successful? You said inflation, you said high debt, high taxes, and less than cash flow management. So tell them why those things are important and that why people need to understand that they're hurting them tremendously in their pockets.
Okay. Well, the first thing that has to happen is people have to understand the first two objectives in the finances. Okay. If you don't understand what the objectives are, you don't understand how the obstacles are actually hurting you.
Okay.
So you're trying to have income for today, number one, and
Mhm.
you're trying to have income for retirement whenever you decide to stop working.
Okay.
Now, on the job, you're only going to make so much income. So that limited income, that's the first part of the obstacle. The first obstacle that you have is limited income and inflation. So you don't control how much money you make.
Mhm.
And then number two, inflation. You got to understand that you're losing money or buying power every single day.
Now hold up. Now when you say you don't get to control how much money you make, but I would say some people will say, well, that's not really true because, say, for example, if I were to go work at a company, I can get into salary negotiations and I can say, pay me 100,000, 200,000, whatever the
Okay.
case, whatever the number is, whatever your
You could
levels
say
are.
that. Okay,
I
you
can go
could
into
say that.
salary negotiations, right? So
Mhm.
wouldn't it be that we can kind of control what we?
No, because you got to look at the objective of the company. The company's objective is to minimize expenses, and your salary or whatever they pay you is an expense.
Okay.
So they want to minimize that as much as they can because it makes them more profitable.
Okay. So they're increasing their margins by paying you less.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's not in their best interest to pay you more money.
Okay. Okay, I got you. Well, keep going.
Okay. So then when you look at inflation, you got to outpace the cost of living.
Mhm.
Every 20 years, the cost of living doubles. Okay. So you look 20 years ago, a gallon of milk was $1.25. Today, a gallon of milk is $3 to $4. Most people's income didn't increase 3 times over that same time frame. So they might have been making $30,000 a year. They might be at 60 now, but they're really still in the same place as they were 20 years ago, if not worse.
So what he's saying is that 20 years ago, if you're making double, you're in the same place,
That's correct, if not worse,
if not worse.
because you've lost buying power. I remember I could buy 2 or 3 pops for $1.25.
Okay,
Today, you can barely get one.
better get one.
Okay, so that's happening to us all the time.
Like, can $2 give me a bag of chips and a pop these days?
Right,
Things
barely,
like
just
that.
barely, just barely.
Cool. So, I think that's tremendously important because people have to understand that, you know, the dollar loses value. $10,000 50, 60 years ago was a lot of money. $10,000 right now can't even get you on the tax bracket or the tax scale in most cases. So I think that's really, really important. But just taking it a step further, with the inflation, the limited income, and everything like that, people can't control what they're making. They can't control the dollar losing. But the government seems to still go in there and take what they want.
Right, that's the form of taxes. Now, when we say cash flow management at MyEcon, what we mean is not just budgeting. We mean minimizing your taxes.
Okay.
You have to strategically pay less in taxes. And when you look at wealthy people, this is what wealthy people do. They figure out ways based on the law to cut tax liability. So you can't keep getting that financial haircut of 30% every time you get paid. You got to figure out how to make it maybe 15%, maybe 10%. In the last decade, I have not paid 5% of my income in taxes. And I've been able to take that money.
I'm gonna stop you right there.
Okay.
So you said in the last
Decade.
you haven't paid more than 5% of your taxes.
That's correct.
So just throw these numbers out here. I don't know if these are numbers. So if you made 100K, you only paid 5,000 in taxes.
That is correct.
Okay.
And most people on a W-2 would have paid maybe $30,000 or $40,000.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
So
you figure 5K, what you're looking at a month there, $250.
if that, about 225,
Something like that.
in tax. It was a good deal. Now, when you look at taxes, and then the third one is debt. See, taxes actually set us up to go into the third obstacles.
Okay.
So since we get 30% of our income taken from us every time we get a check, now what happens is we get out here and we start needing major things in life like cars, homes, stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. We don't have cash flow just kind of sitting aside because we've been limited in cash flow all the time because of taxes. Now we have to finance things. And when you finance stuff, you pay for it 2 or 3 times. And when you're paying minimum payments, 70 to 80% of those minimum payments are interest. So that's basically the right to owe somebody money.
So with interest,
Mm-hmm.
just so to make people understand. So when you're saying interest, if I got a 7% interest rate on, say, a mortgage,
Mm-hmm.
although I know there's a lot of calculations behind the interest and how everything works,
Mm-hmm.
but in what you're saying just now, you're saying basically if you have interest on something, you're basically paying for the right to owe the money. So
That's
in
correct.
terms, you're kind of paying a contract fee? Is that what you're saying, or?
Well, you can call it that, but really what happens is if you had $1,000 mortgage, $700 of it is paying for you to write to owe the money, and $300 is paying down your balance.
Going towards the principal.
The principal, right? The balance.
Okay.
So you might go 20 to 22 years just like that, and you're not paying down very much.
You're not paying anything on the
Right. So
principal balance.
what people got to understand is they got 30% going to taxes, another 30, if not 40%, going to interest. That's 60 to 70% of your income going to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're supposed to live on that, do all this other little stuff, and build personal financial success and save for retirement. Not going to happen.
I mean, that's a hard do when you kind of think about it. When you think about how many people that has taxes, how many
Mm-hmm.
people that actually have debt,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously we know about inflation. I mean, you can just watch CNBC, and then people are going to be like, "Oh, the dollar's losing value, oil is going up, gold is going down."
That's always going to happen.
They charging for air now, they're bottling the water, whatever the case might be.
And we
but
can't control that.
I know, and that's why I think a lot of people really need to understand is, stop getting caught up in what the media says, and really focus on what they're actually doing inside,
Correct.
and that's the big deal. But
Correct.
but the last thing that you always say, and I heard you say it before, is not so much of a common term. You say less than ideal cash flow management.
Mhm.
What exactly does that mean?
Well, we're making a lot of the wrong decisions with our money. We take our money and turn it into trash. We take our money and turn it into things that we don't want. So, for example, let's say I went out and bought myself a brand new BMW. Okay,
Okay.
a lot of people like those cars. Okay,
Like a journey.
now let's say it's $50,000.
Mhm.
Well, in 7 or 8 years, I will probably be paid at least $60,000 to $70,000 for the car, and it would be something that I wouldn't even want anymore. So I'd effectively turn $50,000, $60,000, $70,000
Mm.
of cash flow into nothing. But what if I took that money and maybe my car note was $500 or $600 a month, and I took that and dropped it into my 401k? I would have got a tax deduction. So let's say it's $500 a month.
Mhm.
So I take $500 a month, multiply that times 12. That's $6,000.
6,000 a year. Yeah.
So I would be investing $6,000 a year for 5 or 6 years. Okay, so that would be 30 whatever $1,000 in my investments, and I would have got a roughly 10,000. I would have saved myself $10,000 on taxes in that same scenario.
Okay.
Okay, now I could have that money grow tax deferred. That's a less than ideal cash flow management decision when I take the money and turn it into something that I don't want in a few years. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't go buy nice things or you shouldn't buy things that you need,
Mhm.
but we have to have a different understanding about money. We got to have a different relationship with money because we got to understand that money has a value, it has a power, and when you start understanding that money has a power, you make different decisions with money. Because if I take $30,000 worth of interest and give it to someone else, now I've lost not only $30,000. I've lost all future earnings of
Everything you could deal with the money. Okay.
What that 30,000
All right.
turned into, and they control it forever, and I'm out of control forever. So we have to make different decisions with our money,
Okay.
and we got to invest at 8, 9, or 10% as opposed to 1, 2, or 3%.
Like what they say at the bank's commercial, come down and get that 1%. What is
Right.
it, the CDs and stuff like that?
Right.
And then they
Anytime.
charge you the fee on the back end for having it.
Right. Well, anytime somebody is guaranteeing you anything in the financial world, you guaranteed to lose. You always got to ask yourself the question, why do they love me so much? When you figure out what the answer to that question is, then you figure out if you need to do it or not.
There it is. Well, there it is, folks. Like I said, I sat here with John. We were talking. I was like, man, we gotta let people know about the stuff that you was telling me, man. And it's been a great thing here. So, with that being ado, like I said, I'm James Anderson. Again, I'm here with Mr. Jon Pettiford-El, Executive Vice President, Platinum Executive Vice President with my econ guys, and he's out here burning it up, and he's letting people know every day of how they can do a couple things with their finances, and he calls it personal financial success. So, guys, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.